As you can tell by the title, I'm the obsessed movie man, O.M.M. It's been a year since I reviewed the BBC Count Dracula film, so Bram Stoker's Dracula. Let's talk about it. When I first saw the movie, I was vastly impressed. Aside from the Lugosi and Lee films, I had never seen any other Dracula films, and I thought this was one of the best interpretations of the novel. As the years have passed, however, the film seems to have grown sour. Though it may appear to be one of the more faithful of the adaptations, there are just a few things that don't really work. If you have seen my review of the BBC version entitled Count Dracula, you already know the basic plot, but to be fair, there are a few new things added. In this movie, it is firmly established that Dracula is indeed Vlad Tepes, the supposed inspiration of the Dracula character. The love of his life kills herself, believing Vlad died in battle, and is now damned to hell. Angered, Vlad renounces God and swears to return from the dead to avenge her death. Then, many years later, we get to the familiar story. Solicitor Jonathan Harker travels to Transylvania to discuss business with Count Dracula, who is now a vampire. Of course, things go wrong, Harker is trapped in the castle, and Dracula is free to roam London. As faithfulness goes, it's about 90% accurate. It includes Arthur Holmwood and Quincy Morris as the other two suitors to Lucy. We see that Dracula does progressively grow younger after feeding, and Dracula's death is, in part, the result of Harker and Quincy. Being faithful, however, doesn't entirely make the film good. I've stated before that the two other suitors never really left much of an impression on me. They just appear to be rivals to Seward. True, they had their moments in the story, but I can clearly see why they are usually left out or combined into one character. Though it is cool to see that Dracula is Vlad Tepes, I kind of wish that they kept that out or left it ambiguous. I enjoyed the mystery to Dracula's backstory, the fact that we only know his name and that he was an ancient warrior. Yes, I understand what they were trying to do, show the downfall of a once religious man and then his eventual redemption. But strictly speaking, Vlad Tepes was not exactly the best example of someone who was rarely religious to begin with. But I do think it was an interesting idea to paint Dracula more as a tragic character. In this one, his real cause is indeed to find the reincarnation of his love, who happens to be Harker's fiancée, Mina. Normally, I don't like the concept in vampire or fairy tale stories about the lost, reincarnated lover, and I do find it odd that she would be reincarnated because it was stated that she was damned to hell, but it's done okay. Many other choices made in the movie straight up baffle me though. For example, Dracula's appearances throughout the movie look pretty silly. I don't have a problem with the younger Dracula, but I am referring to his other forms. The second time we see him, he's dressed as Harker's carriage driver, yet for some reason he's dressed as this big armored knight. What? And I can't speak for the behalf of Transylvanian clothing, but looking at the old version of Dracula made me chuckle a little. Why does his hair look like Mickey Mouse ears? Why is he wearing a bright red robe? Yeah, that will totally keep you hidden from potential victims. In the novel and in most adaptations, Dracula is dressed in black. Yes, he is an old man, but it was a simple hairstyle and a mustache. Here, he looks so ridiculous, and the makeup makes him look like the Emperor from Star Wars. Finally, there are the animal forms. For whatever reason, Dracula becomes some sort of werewolf creature, yet he can also turn into a regular wolf, so I question the point. Oh yeah, it's because he has to rape Lucy. I'll talk about that later. Then there is the bat form, which is actually pretty cool. It looks kind of like a demon, but was it really needed? My thoughts are that the less over the top, the better. Dracula is threatening because he takes the appearance of simple things, a man, a bat, and a wolf. He doesn't need to look like a monster when we already know he is a monster. That is scarier. As many have noticed, director Francis Ford Coppola went all out with this film. But was it warranted, or does it look too artsy? The castle looks cool, as it always does, but for some reason it doesn't contain as much dread as the other castles I have seen. Again, maybe it is one of these cases where less is more. Count Dracula did so well and had such a dreary atmosphere, where here it seems more like a castle you would see in a fantasy movie. The sanitarium is alright, but it's nothing worth remembering. Even the graveyards are uninteresting to look at. The movie also has a weird way of showcasing the blood. In the prologue, Dracula stabs a stone cross and blood pours out. Why? Yeah, I get it. It's symbolic, but it's also ludicrous. There's a scene where Lucy is killed by Dracula, and the whole room literally is covered in blood, as if it just burst from her body. Was that necessary? This is looking less like a Dracula movie and more like Evil Dead. Let's move on and talk about the acting. For what it's worth, I think Gary Oldman did a good job as Dracula. He's a fantastic character actor and just loses himself in whatever role he puts himself in. Here he plays Dracula more as a seducer than a monster, but when he needs to be, he can be absolutely terrifying. When he laughs after feeding a baby to his brides, I feel the need to run away screaming. Anthony Hopkins has a few good lines and good laughs, but his portrayal is rather odd. He appears to be more of a madman than the wise and intelligent Van Helsing. The guy is just nuts. Then there's Richard Grant as Seward. It's usually hard to get Seward right in these kind of movies, but I think Grant did a great job with the role. I like the idea of him sort of becoming mad himself due to the inmates and because of his love for Lucy. Of course, we have the other characters. Tom Waite did a meh job as Renfield. He appears to be a stereotypical madman, only with a less laughing and more shouting kind of tone in his voice. I was greatly surprised that he was not used that much, but I did enjoy one little element to Renfield's backstory that might have been a tribute to the 1931 film. Finally, we have Keanu Reeves as Harker and Winona Ryder as Mina. To be fair, Harker himself is a blank slate, so you would think that Reeves would fit the part, but no! He actually makes the part look duller. I did really believe that he was a solicitor, though. I mean, there was no way I could believe that he was an actor. Wisecracks aside, he wasn't the worst Jonathan Harker, but he was not the greatest. And then there is Miss Ryder. The one fault I had with her was that I didn't see Mina, I was seeing Winona Ryder. It was basically the same performance I have seen her give in nearly every film. I'm not saying it was terrible, it's just that I've seen it before, and I know she has done better than this. And now we come to the topic of interest, the sexual overtones. Bram Stoker's Dracula contains scenes of sex, nudity, lesbianism. Why do I have a feeling all of you are going to watch this now? And so forth. Granted, there are sexual themes present in the book, like the vampire women seducing Harker, and critics have discussed the sexual appeal of vampires over the years, but what about this movie's take on it? It's frequently shown that Lucy is very promiscuous, so far as reading sexual books, physically flirting with her suitors, and, for some reason, kissing Mina. Seriously, I didn't get that. Where did it come from? Oh, and then Lucy gets raped by the Dracula werewolf thing. I found it more messed up than terrifying. I do understand Dracula's sexual appeal, though. Men wish to have his seductive powers, and women want to meet someone as handsome as he is. But all in all, Dracula's played more as a sexual predator in the book, where here he's played as a romantic. And a rapist in one scene. But I digress. Then again, there are other subtle hints within the film, such as homoeroticism and pedophilia, but these elements are downplayed and not as blatant as the rest. At the end of the day, I believe that the sexual dealings and violence of the Dracula story does not have to be clearly shown and made blatantly obvious, but rather given a more simple and restrained way of expressing these themes. After listening to me complain about this movie for a long time, you probably think that I really hate it, when in reality, I don't. This may be shocking to hear, but it is one of my favorite Dracula films. Gary Oldman's portrayal is excellent, the music is eerie as hell, and despite the over-the-top appearances of some characters and set designs, I still find them fascinating to watch. If I have so many problems with the movie, you might be wondering why I still watch it. I personally think that the main problem is the title, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like any adaptation, it is free to change the source material and have many differences with the novel, but the fact that it is labeled as the official Dracula movie irks me a bit, and that might be the reason why I nitpick this movie so much. Of course there will never be a perfect adaptation of anything. In fact, I even nitpicked Count Dracula a bit, but that doesn't mean that they are bad movies and are not worth watching. If you are a Dracula fan, I do encourage you to look at this film and see some of the unique ideas placed in this film, like Dracula's shadow having a mind of its own. Seriously, that was really cool. And then you are free to determine if this is worthy of placing in your vampire collection. I give this movie 3.5 bats out of 5. Thanks, this is an O.M.M review. This is O.M.M signing out.